The Batman. Spoiler time here. Let's get right into it. First things first, I feel like the first 10 to 15 minutes of The Batman is some of the best opening to a Batman movie ever. Batman narrating. I believe this is the first time in a movie where Batman narrates. I said before that some people complain about these Batman movies being less about Batman and more about the villains, or there's too much other cool shit going on surrounding Batman himself, and we never get inside Batman's head. I thought this was a great way to get inside Batman's head. Yes, he's very emo. Yes, he's not subtle with the way that he feels about certain situations, but hearing him talk about the impact that he's making on Gotham, the fear that he's aware that he puts into criminals, seeing them out there, see that his symbol, the bat signal, is out there and it scares them. They look into the shadows and they feel like he could be there watching them, and it makes them scared. I love that dynamic. The fighting, I think some people might have issues with how much of this story, how much of this movie is about the crime and the detective and trying to solve the murders. But there are some cool fight scenes. Obviously, in the beginning, Batman, the scene that we've seen a bunch of times of him taking out all of those thugs, and it's awesome. It's just as awesome as you want it to be. But then the car chase later on, where Batman is chasing the Penguin on the highway, and I loved it. I loved how aggressive Batman was, how angry he was, the Batmobile. I almost wanted to see more of this Batmobile. It looked even better in the film in action than it did in the photos that I saw previously. The Riddler, I can talk a little bit more about the Riddler specifically. His look, it reminded me a lot of a combination of Hush, uh, and obviously it is the Riddler as far as his personality and leaving the riddles for every crime. But I love that Riddler's psychology was more so he looked at it like he was working with the Batman. And that's a take that I was not expecting. The interrogation scene where Riddler is talking to Batman and he basically says, "Look at what we both were able to do. Look at what we accomplished. We snuffed out the rats. We snuffed out the corrupt and the politicians, and they all got what they deserved. And now there's more coming." And Batman looked at him like, "What the hell? Like, we're not partners. I'm not working with you." And I love that that was a take that I just wasn't expecting. Sure, you could argue that maybe there wasn't enough of Batman figuring out the Riddler's plan before everything goes down, or there wasn't a moment where Batman out and out outsmarts the Riddler, and maybe I was looking for that a little bit, but at the same time, it is established that this is Batman's second year, so it's not necessarily his origin, but he's still very early on in his Batmaning around the city. And I like that. I also love how obsessive Robert Pattinson is with, like, he spends all of his time, his waking time, doing Batman stuff. He couldn't care less about being Bruce Wayne. He couldn't care less about the Enterprise. He couldn't care less about going out there and pretending to be a playboy. Now, maybe eventually we'll get to that point, and that's why I'm not upset about it that we didn't get that side of Bruce. But I think it's still a lot of room to grow for this Batman. The moment at the end when he realizes what he could be to Gotham, what he could be to the people, he could be a hero symbol. And he's been so fixated on the darkness. He's been so fixated on vengeance. And it was a huge growth. Back to the Riddler, I love that he used saw-like traps. It definitely echoed something Jigsaw would do. I like the little touches of the traps, the one where the rats ate the commissioner's face off, and the whole touch of him duct taping people's faces, and the realization that they were still alive when he did it, and so they suffocate in the duct tape. I didn't realize that until it was said out loud, and I said, "Holy shit, that's dark." And then the moment later on where Riddler is purely just a guy who's a loner. He's sad. He thinks he's owed something. He's built up this following online of people who too want to go out there. He's created a cult. It was a take on the Riddler that I never quite thought about in this way, but I embraced it. I welcomed it. Gordon and Batman working together was great, and we're used to that a little bit with The Dark Knight and Gary Oldman, but it was nice to see that, yeah, we might not have seen how they got to this point, how they got this close, but I like that Gordon still is a little unsure about Batman. He's like, I don't even know who you are and what you look like, but whatever they have been through before, it's enough to make Gordon trust Batman. It's enough to have Gordon make Batman come in for these crime scenes. All the other cops are against it, giving Gordon shit about it. And I love that. I love that Gordon doesn't care. He knows that Batman is the best case scenario to solve these crimes. So many of these cops are corrupt. And just great stuff that I can't wait to see hopefully get played out in future films. Zoe Kravitz as Selena Kyle. This take on Selena Kyle was very interesting because she was not selfish and only out for herself, only thinking for herself. She gets into all of this mess for her friend, Annika, who turns up missing. Obviously, she died. She was murdered. But Selena is trying to find this girl in the Iceberg Lounge. First of all, Penguin having the Iceberg Lounge is a dream come true. I have been begging and asking for an Iceberg Lounge in live action film for decades, and we got it. But seeing her go almost undercover in there, her and Batman working together, was just a nice change of pace. Look, I do like when they're adversarial, but I prefer when they're on the same page. I prefer when Batman and Catwoman are on the same team, with the same goals, doing the same stuff. And that's what we got. Yes, there was hints of romance, but it wasn't solely about that. It wasn't revolving about that. I like that as much as Batman, and clearly you saw in his eyes that he wanted to kiss her. He desperately wanted to leave Gotham with Selena. He can't. He doesn't. There's still so much work to be done. She recognized that he's not going to be able to turn back on this horrible, shitty city, I admit. But also finding out that Selena Kyle is the daughter of Carmine Falcone, which I know they pronounce it Falcone. I still say Falcone, so fuck it. But that was a big twist, but a change of pace that I embraced. It made a lot of sense given her background, where she came from, what happened to her mother, and giving Selena even more reason to be invested in the criminal aspect of this plot, which I loved. I loved the criminal elements in Gotham here. I love the corruption. I love the political officials being involved, being on the pay. I love that Falcone had all of this going on for years. And I even like the fact, because a lot of people were assuming that Thomas Wayne is going to be revealed to be a horrible person, a corrupted person, and Bruce, it's going to have a huge impact on him. I like that they pulled back on it. It's, if they did do it, I know in The Joker, Thomas Wayne is a dick, and that's fine for that particular story. And if there's another Batman movie later on where Thomas Wayne ended up being an asshole, it's like, okay, fine. If it works, it works. But I do like that they didn't go that far, that Thomas Wayne was just a guy who got mixed up with the wrong people. He asked for something and didn't realize how far it would go. He made mistakes and he got caught up. And again, it shows that he's flawed while still trying to do the right thing. I love the moment where they got into even Martha Wayne's past and how her last name was Arkham, and she has this history of being crazy. Alfred almost dying really got me. That explosion, it had me going. And even though we didn't get a lot of Andy Serkis, I still like Alfred in general, what he represents to Bruce, how he is trying to help Bruce. I do love how much Alfred is capable to help Bruce figure stuff out. They alluded to maybe he trained Bruce to fight a little bit. And then the end of this movie with the bombs going off and Gotham flooding, that was a big surprise. That was like, man, do we have time to have a whole another third act where Batman has to deal with this? How is he going to be able to deal with this? And it's not so much of Batman trying to stop this thing from happening or trying to undo it. It's more so just enduring. Batman and Gotham itself having to endure a horrific, tragic event like this. I would argue that maybe this sounded like or seemed like something that the Joker would have done, right? The Joker totally planning bombs around the city and just blowing everything up to flood it definitely seemed more Joker-like, and I almost wonder if maybe they should have saved a plot point like that for a sequel, which leads me to one of the last scenes is we get Paul Dano in Arkham in prison, and his cellmate, not directly in the same cell, but next to him, presumably the Joker. And I am very mixed on this. I don't know if I love this. I don't know if they're trying to set up a sequel where the Joker teams with the Riddler, or if the Joker by himself will be the villain. I am thinking about the possibility of this particular Batman, Robert Pattinson's Batman, interacting with a Joker. That is a cool prospect. That is something that I would watch that movie for sure. But I do feel like we're so Jokered out. We have seen the Joker so much that I would be okay with retiring the Joker just for a little while. I would be okay with if the sequel had Joker just stay in Arkham and maybe we have like one or two scenes where we see him, but he's not the main villain. He's not the main threat. Just having a Joker that exists already and it's just sort of around. That's the only scene that I was a little unsure about, that I was a little question marked about. But other than that, I love this movie. I do. I love the Zodiac aspect, the Seven vibe that we got. I love the Nirvana song playing more than once. It's one of those situations where you see a trailer that has a kick-ass song, but it almost never makes it into the movie. It was only chosen for the trailer, but when it came on, and it was the real audio version of the actual song, not remixed, not redone. So guys, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of the Batman? Spoiler time now. Let me know what your favorite moment was. What was maybe your least favorite moments? Did you love this movie as much as I did? What do you want to see from the sequel? Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Later.